Okay, following on from yesterday, another Galnet article today. Superpowers stand with Azimuth. The Alliance, Empire and Federation will continue collaborating with Salvation and Azimuth Biotech on anti-Xeno operations. Political journalist Conrad Sterling reviewed the latest developments for Vox Galactica. We now know the truth. Azimuth has not only survived, but was responsible for many controversial activities. It contributed to the mycoid virus's development, coordinated with Black Flight, and oversaw Project Seraph. Now this notorious organisation enjoys the trust of all three superpowers to eliminate the Thargoid threat. Vocal members of the Assembly, Congress, and Senate have called for everyone at Azimuth Biotech, formerly Taurus Mining Ventures, to be arrested as criminals. Professor Albert Tesreau has demanded justice for the crew of the Alexandria, which was sabotaged by Azimuth to obtain its cargo of Guardian artifacts. But Allied, Federal, and Imperial leaders have all deferred to their militaries to determine a course of action until the current war's end. Their perspective can be summed up by Admiral Maxton Price's comment: "Without Salvation's superweapon, we will be locked in conflict with the Thargoids forever." Many still claim that the INRA outpost at DG Canum Venaticorum was faked by Aegis loyalists. Others noted that Salvation did not confirm that he is Caleb Wycherley and is potentially a far younger man building upon his predecessor's research. The reality is that the momentum of Salvation's campaign is now too strong to be diverted. As is often the case during wartime, legality and morality have been set aside to focus on achieving victory. Azimuth has done more than just survive. It has triumphed. So what I speculated yesterday, it might still be Salvation doing this, it might be some successor carrying on his work that's doing this. It's not mega important though. What is important is that, as we all suspected, the superpowers are taking the attitude of, well, you know, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs, and all of this is a means to an end, and the end justifies the means, and might is right, and he's doing something about the Thargoids and no one else is, so they're protecting him, as I did speculate about in my last video, and it looks like that is the way that it's gone. But it has understandably caused a backlash and a lot of anger within the player community. Okay, well, some of you may have watched the latest Burr video where he's talking about an initiative by the players to fight against Salvation. And they've started up a Discord. They're not sure how far they're going to get with it. They're not sure how successful they're going to be. But this is a backlash from the players at the turn of events. They're not happy about it. And so if you're interested in signing up, I'll stick the links below. You can also watch the Burr video where he will give you all the links that you need if you want to get involved. And so the possibility is to manipulate the BGS, the background system, in order to kick Azimuth Biotech out of at least 3 of the 5 systems that they currently occupy. A new initiative, the Witch Hunt, has been started by some player factions to try and get rid of Azimuth Biochemicals, now renamed Azimuth Biotech. Let's have a look at how possible that might be. Could it be possible to manipulate the BGS, the background system, and get Azimuth out of some of these systems, reduce their influence? If we can't do anything about the story, some players are thinking, then perhaps we can get them kicked out of the few systems that they're currently inhabiting. So we're looking on the Inara page, and as you can see, there are 5 systems here: Maya, Mbuni, Merope, Karato, and Titori. Titori and Mbuni are highly unlikely. The chances of getting Azimuth displaced, they're the only faction in Mbuni with obviously 100% influence because of that. It also needs a permit to get in. So the chances of getting them out of there I would say would be pretty slim. The same, I would say, goes for Titori. You don't need a permit to get in, but there's only them and the Hind Cooperative there. It might be possible to support the Hind Cooperative to the point where they're more popular. They're not supported by players, although they're an NPC faction. They've got 19.1% of the influence compared to 80.9%. It would be a monumental job to actually push them to the point where you would force them into a war for control of the system with Azimuth Biotech. I very much doubt if you would be able to kick Azimuth out of either Mbuni or Titori, because my guess is, I haven't checked, but my guess is that they will be native factions there, or Hand of Godded in there by FDev, so they can't be actually kicked out of the system. So that's two systems where it's probably not going to work, which leaves us with three. So let's look at the first of those, Maya. Now Maya is a possibility because there are 3 player factions here already. Hagglebeard's Heroes, the Anti-Xeno Initiative and Operation Ida. These 3 factions here, the Pioneers Cooperative, Rider Revolutionary Party and the awesomely named Nebula Goat Appreciation Society, as well as the Anthill Mob down here, are all non-player factions, and they're not specifically supported by players, any of them. Okay, so if you look here, according to Inara, none of them are specifically supported by players, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't be, especially when they're rallied together in a common cause like displacing Azimuth. Now, if Azimuth are non-native to this system, and I believe they are, they're on 5.3%, they could be forced into retreat and kicked out of the system with a concerted enough player effort. And if we look at Merope, the same again. We've got the Hive, Anti-Xeno Initiative and Operation Ida, all player factions. Sirius Mining Merope, a non-player faction, but supported by players. I suppose there's always going to be supporters for Sirius somewhere. Now, they are in an election with exactly the same amount of influence, 8.3%. They're in an election with Azimuth Biotech, and if they win that election against Azimuth Biotech, Azimuth Biotech's influence in this system will be reduced. So if you want to fight Azimuth Biotech here, then look to go down there with a small ship capable of stacking lots and lots of data missions, courier missions and stuff like that. Any mission with election in the title. And help Sirius Mining Merope. Have to hold your nose a bit, but help Sirius defeat Azimuth and win that election there. And the Hive, the Anti-Xeno Initiative and the Operation Ida, I don't know what their stance is on this yet, but we will see. There's a possibility anyway to force them out, just as there is in Maya. And if we go to Karato here, Karato again, now they've got a bit more influence here, 11.3, and all of these factions below, although NPCs, are not supported specifically by player squadrons, or at least not any that Inara is aware of. Therefore, they are at war with Blackbird's Concilium. Now, they are a player faction. So, this is a good one. If you want to get yourself some combat bonds, and actually fight a war against Azimuth and feel like you're doing something aggressive against them, this is a system to go for. Here in Karato, if Blackbird's Concilium wins the war against Azimuth Biotech, Azimuth Biotech will have their influence reduced, and it then may be possible to use standard BGS tactics to reduce their influence further. So, the two most likely systems for getting them kicked out at the moment are Maya where they're already near the bottom of the tree, and Merope, by helping them to lose an election. And possibly force them into retreat after that. Karato is going to be a bit more tricky because you're going to have to win a war first, and they've got slightly more influence here with 11.3%. But it's not impossible. Win the war, reduce their influence, kick them down the tree a bit, and then perhaps support these factions against them to kick them down the tree a bit more, and a bit more, and a bit more, and possibly force them into retreat. But if I was going to use the BGS to manipulate Azimuth out of the picture, I would focus on those three systems. I would probably not bother trying to get them out of Mbuni or Titori. I don't think there's any chance of that, but Maya, Merope and Karato are all very, very viable targets. So, if you want to join the initiative, those might be some things for you to keep in mind. These are systems where Azimuth is weak. The most they have in any of them is 11.3% influence. So if you want to work towards kicking them out, I suggest, based on my experience doing the Dark Wheel initiative, I'm not a BGS expert compared to some of those guys, but I did do a lot of work on the Dark Wheel initiative, and I did learn a lot about manipulating the BGS doing that. And my advice as a little bit more than a layman, but a little bit less than an expert, would be to focus your attention on the election and the war, and also run jobs in Maya. If you get the time to do that, run jobs in Maya, especially for the player factions, but also see if you can build up the Ants Hill mob, because by building up the Ants Hill mob to get the same level of influence, 5.3%, as Azimuth Biotech, that will force the Ants Hill mob into a war with Azimuth Biotech, which then you could make Azimuth lose, and that would put them down at the bottom of the tree, and you'd have a chance to kick them out of the system. So if you do want to join the initiative against Azimuth, if you're one of those outraged players who think that the superpowers have got it all wrong by supporting Salvation and Azimuth, and fed up with having decisions like this taken out of your hands as players, and you want to do something about it, that's my advice to you. That's where to look, that's where to get started. And as always, I'll bring you more on this as I get it. In the meantime, good luck to the witch hunt, whether they succeed or not. As the Burpit said on their video, if they even manage to get FDev to notice that there is some kind of player lashback against this, and get mentioned and send the message to FDev that the players want more agency in making decisions, then that can only be a good thing for the game. So whatever your stance on this, even if you support Salvation, it might be worth doing this anyway. Leave him with his 2 home systems and kick him out of the other 3. More on this story as it develops, or as we get more news. The tick is up tomorrow. There might be another CG related to this. There might be another part of the story related to this. Thursday is often when new things happen. But I'll leave you with this. My thoughts on the BGS and the possible ways to manipulate it to get rid of Azimuth Biotech, should you so wish. Or even if you don't, but you want to send a message to FDev that players should have more agency in the big decisions in the game and more control over the story. Thanks for watching.